You spent 3 years at least coaching college golfers. Then you started beating them. What do you know that they don't?
I would say how to manage your time, how to be more efficient with practice as far as, um, I used to beat range balls, right? I think that's a common theme amongst college golf coaches that play college golf and maybe try to play professionally as well. A lot of times you look back and realize that you spent way too much time beating balls trying to perfect your golf swing instead of going out on the golf course and playing and try to learn how to get the ball in the hole.
Mm. Well, let's talk to me a little bit about practice. You just won your 3rd straight Tennessee State Am, which is insane. How many hours a week are you actually practicing?
I would say actual practicing, or like are we factoring in playing as well?
All the above. Any
All
prep
the
for an
above.
event?
I would say typically I would, if I have an event coming up, I like to start a week and a half, 2 weeks prior to the event, and that looks for me like maybe kind of monitoring my swing that first week, seeing what's going on, um, talking with my instructor, and just looking if there's anything I need to work on. I'll hit balls for maybe twice that week. Nothing super strenuous. Maybe an hour, work on a few fundamentals. Most of it is slow rehearsals, and I would say a lot of it is mirror work inside the house. I don't. If I go and hit too many balls nowadays, my back starts hurting. So I think for me, it's more of being smart about it and making sure that I'm doing what I'm set out to do in a the best way possible. So for me, that looks like I said, mirror work, slow rehearsals on the range, and I shouldn't be out there more than an hour and a half.
Mm.
The second week of that, I would say, is trying to play as many games as possible. So normally 3 to 4 rounds in that second week, and most of it is competitive against friends, people that I know, trying to get money matches and whatever, fun, but like competitive at the same time.
So, if you just had 45 minutes to go practice, what are you doing? What are you skipping? Like if we broke it down to your 4 categories, how are we spending time in each of those 4 strokes gain categories?
I would spend all of my time chipping and short irons, wedges.
Mm.
I most of the putting I feel like for me is setup related, and I'm big on once my setup is good, I'm all feel and reactionary. Um, and I would say if I feel like my wedges and chipping are good, then most everything else is going to be good enough.
Mm, that's interesting. So it sounds like off the tee gets cut a little bit. For most golfers, you maybe go to the range and you would see some guys pounding drivers, right?
Mhm.
Why is that something that gets cut for you?
To be honest, because I struggled with the driver so much throughout my, I would say, parts of college career and then professional career. A short stint that it was in 2 years, but I think I spent so much time doing that, right? That I would hit so many drivers, and I never saw any benefit from it, and I felt like I almost overcomplicated it. So for me, I typically don't spend too much time with that, and oddly enough, it's gotten better. I think that um, it taught me that it's more quality over quantity, right? And like if I'm making the proper sequence and swing that I need to with a shorter shot, then there's no reason I can't do it with a longer club. Not to say that I don't practice hitting, long irons or driver. I still do, but I don't think that although driver is very, very important, oddly enough, I found that for me that it works better when I'm not sitting there beating drivers.
85% of you who are watching are not subscribed, and I get it. You probably just found the channel. But when you subscribe, YouTube's going to put this in front of more people just like you, and they can get better at golf with the limited time and resources just like you can simply by listening to this content. So smash that subscribe button. I've always wanted to say that. Now back to Payne. Well, we mentioned you've coached at a very high level. You've been involved with a lot of high level programs, both as a player and as a coach. And in college, that is your job, whether or not you're being paid for it. Shout out to NIL. Where did you see some players go wrong when it came to how they were spending their time, and how did you guys correct it?
Most of it is just how efficiently they practice, right? I mean, I think it's not so much of, are you out there spending the time? I never had too much of an issue coaching players that wanted to spend the time necessarily. They all typically do. That's kind of a requirement, right? So most of it was like, how efficient are you? Are you actually getting better? And I would say most of them fail to a certain extent, just for the sake of, yes, they might have a tentative plan that day, but they don't necessarily, they'll be like, "Oh, I'm going to hit this many balls, or I'm going to do chip, and I'm going to putt." It's like, well, what's the intent behind it all? Like,
Mm,
what is your ultimate goal behind that? Like, what are you going to focus on while you're doing that? Are you focusing on, you know, a specific, you know, position in your swing? Are you doing it slow so you can get the feel and ingrain it, or are you just saying, "Hey, I'm going to hit 120 golf balls with an 8 iron, and I'm going to do it full speed, and I'm going to think about this." Well, to be honest, if you're actually working on something and you're wanting to get anything out of it, you can't do it full speed. So I think a lot of it comes, sometimes you got to slow it down and you got to be a little more methodical about it, a little more deliberate, um, in order to make changes happen.
there's maybe a little over a year ago, I heard the quote, "A lack of intent leads to," um, what was it? "A lack of intent leads to repetition of what is easiest."
Mm,
And I think that's a really interesting way to think about it. Like, okay, if you don't go in there with intent, but you still do stuff, you're probably just going to do whatever is easiest for you, or
for sure,
what feels the simplest mentally. You're not going to do something that's mentally challenging, or at a bare minimum physically challenging.
for sure.
Where
Yeah,
did you how did you correct those players? Was there a certain like sit down session, for those who are listening who have a full-time job who want to get the most out of their practice? What are maybe some principles that you were using in the programs that you were involved with that could help those players?
yeah, I would say most of the time it would just be pointing out to them what was going on. Like, hey, like I see you out here doing, and it would always be a process, right? Like it was, um, everybody has their own system and ways of doing things. So you don't ever want to say anything too soon. You want to see, hey, is this like, does this work for this guy? Because I've seen some of the best golfers that I've been around, either coaching or teammates. Um, some of them didn't necessarily work near as hard as some of the other ones. If you're looking at, time spent, and um, I think that I learned a lot from maybe some of those guys,
Mm,
and most of that was, well, this guy knows, hey, this works for him. He knows that if he sits out here and he hits a bunch of balls, just raking one after another, that he doesn't benefit from it. So I think one of the easiest things, I don't know, I think for me is, once you see, hey, like this is not necessarily working, or I don't feel like I'm getting the most out of this. It's, typically was a simple conversation as a coach that, hey man, like let's explore
mm,
this, right? I think that you have the talent, you have the game. It seems like you're just not quite getting everything out of it, right? So let's explore maybe trying to practice a little more this way, or trying to play more. I think it's just keeping an open mind and realizing that, obviously practice. There's no substitute for practice and working hard. Don't get me wrong. However, um, I think a lot of people just don't necessarily do it the right way.
I ask every elite mid-am who comes on this show one simple question. What are busy golfers getting wrong about practice? We've now had 15 different elite amateurs on this show, and they've all got day jobs, and they've all answered this question in various ways. And we put that all into one cheat sheet that not only allows you to see what they said, but how to take action on it. This includes Payne's specific range hour, which is here in a few. This includes Payne's exact 1 hour range session, which you'll hear in just a few minutes. This is completely free and it is linked down below. What's interesting is that experience as a coach has clearly bled into how you play. And like you after the 2024 Tennessee State Am, you said you had to think more like a coach. What does that mean for those of us who maybe don't have that experience?
Yeah, I think it was more of internally being able to talk to myself
Mm,
like I would talk to one of my players. Um, sometimes it's easy to know what to say and not easy to accept it internally to yourself. So I think a lot of that was, yeah, I think coaching has helped me a ton, and I think that it helped me realize that I'll say some things to my players, and then sometimes I'm like, wow, like I say this and I know it's true, and I'm not doing it myself. So like, sometimes you're saying stuff and you're having to look in the mirror and you're like, wow, it's like I know this to be true and I'm not doing it. So like, why not?
yeah, I do that. I still get to help out with the team at the university that I attended. I'm thankful enough that I get to kind of assistant volunteer out there and help out where needed. And so I've got that, and I come on the internet like daily and yell at people about stuff, you know. So it's like I get it from both ways. I mean, I went
Right.
through like a little 2 week stretch there where I was just like playing bad, like just not scoring. I was like, you know what? Statistically, I'm supposed to have high rounds. That's why averages exist. But it's so hard in the moment to really recognize that.
For sure.
So for people who don't get on camera and yell at other people, or for people who don't go and coach a collegiate or a high school program, what are some of those lessons that they can take with them, and how can they start to internalize those things?
I would say a lot of it to me seems cliche, but I think it's ultimately just work smarter, not harder, right?
Mm,
At the end of the day, especially if you have limited time, like I said, there's no substitute for hard work. However, I think make sure that when you go and spend your time and you go and practice, that you have a plan. Write something down. Like we would tell our college guys that, and I myself am not very good at it. However, I've found myself to get better at it internally. I at least know when I go out there, I have a plan. There is typically somewhat of a max time limit for me, which helps. However, when you're in college, sometimes you have maybe 3 to 5 hours, or if you're on a weekend and maybe if you're not married or you don't have kids, you got maybe endless amount of time. So sometimes you have all day, and that can be a bad thing. And so I think literally setting aside time to just think about what do I need to work on? Like, what has my instructor been telling me? What is one thing that I can accomplish today? How many balls am I going to hit thinking about this? And how many balls I'm going to hit thinking about that, right? And I think um, you move from there, and then you go. There's also another element of being able to practice, I would say target oriented, where you're not focusing on mechanics at all. Like I think separating these areas is a big deal, and it's something that is maybe not talked about enough.
mm. Can you talk to me a little bit more about that? What's a lot of people, the way I kinda talk about it is people who are good at eating intuitively, so just eating when they feel like they need to and they still don't, like, way overeat like I would, probably at some point went through a period where they tracked everything, right? So for you, there was clearly a period of time where you were tracking some things, and now you're quote unquote "intuitively eating" or intuitively practicing, right? What are maybe some, without people having to get super overwhelmed and trying to track every single range ball, what are maybe some simple keystone things they can do before they go to the range or the putting green to help them practice with some more intent?
Yeah, I would say, if you're going to the range and say you only have an hour, let's separate 20 minutes in three different segments. Okay. So you've got, we'll say 20 minutes and we're going to work on nothing but whatever our latest instructor has told us, right? Or whatever swing tip we saw online. Something general that we can accomplish, but we're going to make sure for 20 minutes that, hey, we're accomplishing this. Okay. Nothing else matters. Contact, where the ball goes, does not matter. For the next 20 balls, or for the next 20 minutes, we are going to focus on nothing but tempo, say, as an example. And that's it. That's all we're focusing on. And in the last 20 minutes, we were focusing on nothing but like we would play on the golf course. Okay. So we got no alignment rods down. We were focusing on picking targets. We're going to make that target, fluctuate. We're going to change clubs. We're going to play real life golf on the range. Okay.
Mm.
So I think for me, it's a big deal to be able to end a session like that.
Quick pause. What Payne just said is the exact reason that the Play Ready Golf app exists. Most golfers go to the range, dump a bucket, hit a bunch of balls, and wonder why they don't get better when they play the next time. Play Ready Golf allows you to take that exact time and resources that you already had access to, but build it into something that's going to actually affect your scores. We launched in late March, and we've already had people cut their handicaps in half, literally go from 16 handicaps to 8 or less, break 90 for the first time, break 80 for the first time, and tons of other stories of people dropping 3, 4, 5 shots off their handicap. So whether you've just got 15 minutes in your living room to putt, or you've got 2 hours in all the practice facilities in the world, Play Ready Golf is going to allow you to actually get better with the time and resources that you do have. You can use code PRGPOD to get $20 off every single year for life. It's the second link down in the description. Now back to the episode.
Because I've done the repetition deal, and I think you've probably heard it many times as well. You sit there on the range and you can repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, and why is it not showing up on the golf course? Well, are you practicing like you do, or should, in order to make it translate? That's the $1 million question
Yeah.
always, right? Like how do I get it from the range to the course? Well, it's because you don't target practice. You don't put yourself in those scenarios enough, and you're still probably thinking about mechanics or the wrong things.
Yeah. It's something I really struggle with in college. I've talked about a lot. Like I was a serial ball beater. Um
Same.
but I mean the amount of times I would go and hit like 108 irons, it's like, well, by the time I hit the second one, it wasn't realistic to the golf course if I wasn't working on something with my swing. Right? Like
Right.
in what world, unless I have a penalty shot or a mulligan, am I hitting a second shot exactly the same?
Right.
So unless I'm working on something very specific in my swing, which you and I both know I wasn't, it's like it's just it wasn't helping me, unfortunately.
Right.
Um, which is a little frustrating now, but also the fact that I was able to fail at that has allowed me to learn and get better. And I don't know, I think that's part of the process too. I think people look at failure when they're practicing as like true failure, like, oh man, I suck. Like, oh,
It's not at
I
all.
didn't finish this putting drill. Like, I'm awful. I'm never gonna try it again. Like, no, that's not how. Like, you're supposed to fail. You learn the most from failing. I actually had a he's probably listening to this podcast. I had a guy DM me not too long ago, and he said, I keep WDing from tournaments if I'm not playing well. Is that bad? Like, is it a bad look? I was like, no, like nobody really cares. Like, really, nobody cares. Like in general, nobody's paying attention to you. Just in general, right? No, for anybody.
Right.
And number two, you're only hurting yourself. Like
Right.
you learn the most in those events where you suck. Like I shot 82 in my US Mid-Am qualifier. That sucked. But like I learned a lot. I learned, what my tendencies are,
100%.
what, like, and also, I mean, yeah, it was just, I think that there's a lot of embarrassment or failure avoidance because of the perceived, especially, I think social media screwed us too, but I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't want to get too philosophical about that, but
Yeah. Yeah. No,
it's,
you're 100% right. And like, man, I've been there. There's been times where I was so afraid of where the golf ball was going off the tee that I did not want to play with anybody because I was embarrassed.
yeah,
Didn't want to play in a tournament, because it was like I was afraid, right? And I think um, like to your point, ultimately the only thing that's going to get you through that is to go out there and hey, like I don't care what happens, like I'm gonna figure this out, like, and I'm gonna figure out what works out here because ultimately that's all that matters, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not necessarily what works on the driving range when there's no pressure. There's like that's a completely different mental, physical state, right? But when you got to tee it up and it counts, like that's when you learn the most about yourself. And I think the more you lean into that and embrace it, I think the better all of that gets. I
Mm,
think the more you shy away from that stuff, and I'm talking to my old self. The more you shy away from that, the worse it gets, right? So that was something that I had to
yeah.
learn as well.
That's interesting. One of the ways I talk to the girls and guys teams here on campus is you have 2 options when you're standing over every shot. You can either choose confidence and take your chances or not be confident and know it's gonna happen. And I think there were probably a lot of really nervy shots for you not too long ago out at Merion. A lot of uncomfy shots, I would assume, right? Some
For
weird tee
sure,
shots. 18 looked ridiculous.
and it's
Can you
hard.
walk me through maybe some of the more memorable shots out there? What have you been out to Marion before your practice round? What was that whole experience like? I know this isn't your first rodeo in a USAM, but that was a unique venue.
For sure. It was the first time. The practice round was the first time I played it, and I just remember telling my caddy, I was like, "This place is hard. Like it's really hard." And I mean, I've played in that was my fifth USAM. Um, so I've been fortunate enough to play some awesome USGA venues, right? And they're all incredible. So it means a lot to say like this is hard, right? So I think yeah, I was kind of blown away at how fast the greens were. Um, some of the putts out there, man, I've never seen anything so fast. So I think it's an awesome track. There was definitely some difficult tee balls, um, along with some long par threes that were very hard. It was just, to be honest, it was just tough tee to green. I think I had the intent, or I had maybe intent's not the word. I had initial thought that like it was pretty short, and it kind of gets that rep that it is, pretty short, but it's difficult, right? And I mean, it does not play that short because most of the short holes you're hitting an iron off the tee, and yeah, you have a wedge in your hand. So I mean, you've got 4 to 5, I would say, scoreable holes, all in all. And then a lot of the others are just like you're just hanging on, like you got to hit phenomenal golf shots. So it was a great test.
Uh, I thought it was interesting. Do you listen to No Laying Up podcast by chance?
Occasionally,
Their their episode they did Sunday night, Neil was talking about that Marion's the world's best collection of par fours because it's 18 par fours. Like every single hole is just like it's either a really hard par three or it's a par four, it's a semi easy
yeah,
par five. I just thought that was
that's
an
fair.
interesting way of talking about it.
That's fair.
Um, in going into these big USGA events where the setup is championship level, and by that, we're talking really firm greens, really fast greens, tight fairways, like everything that everybody's described a US Open as. Are you prepping any different for those events? Or I mean, once again, you've won the Tennessee State Am 3 times in a row. Like at some point, you're one of the best players in the world. Or are you taking that confidence and saying, I already have the skills to take this challenge? Or are you trying to hone in any specific areas?
I think that's a good question. It's something that I think I personally I need to try and get better at, but I think I don't think the prep changes necessarily. Um, it's always good to maybe play on faster greens if you
Mm.
can, if you have that luxury, because they're normally always rolling pretty good. Um, but it's this year, I would say that part of it was I went and played Old Stone in Bowling Green, Kentucky one day, which is kind of a similar type golf course as a USAM. Fast greens, need to hit the fairway, rough stick. So I would say that was maybe part of my prep, but For the most part, I try not to make it too much different,
Mm.
and realize that at the end of the day, it's just another golf tournament, and prepare the way I normally would. And I think sometimes if you go from not playing a ton of golf to all of a sudden you're playing every single day for 2 weeks prior to a tournament, like I've done that before, and it doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So I think you have to know yourself, you have to know your limitations, and you got to be smart about it because that is a big deal, right? I think knowing how to prepare and knowing what you can handle.
Mm. And preparation also comes down a little bit to with those events, you're all over the place, right? Like last year out in California, this year you're in Philadelphia. When it comes to changing like literal grass types or climates or air density, right? Like that's all that can also play a factor into
For sure.
yardages. How do you go about preparing for those things? Are you getting on site maybe a little bit earlier? Have you just played enough golf at this point to where you kind of understand what you need to do?
I think I try to take pride in being able to adjust. I'm not necessarily always the best at it, but golf is all about adjustments, right? I think um, you know throughout the round you're constantly making adjustments. So for me, yes, I think one of the hardest parts that I've struggled with is the rough
Mm,
in the Northeast, or even in California last year. It was very similar. The Kentucky bluegrass type rough that I don't see it here in Tennessee or in Florida or whatever. It's all Bermuda. So I've struggled with that at times. So I try to make more of a conscious effort to you know spend more time around the greens and practice rounds, chipping, getting used to different lies, getting used to the rough, or not just chipping, but also full shots. I mean, I think we know what it does out of the fairway if we hit it solid, right? So that's not really as big of a deal as it is. Sometimes in the practice round, you might hit the fairway, and hey, I need to throw another ball in the rough over here and see what it does out of this lie if it's going into the grain or across grain or down grain. So I think for me, mostly it's spending time in the rough.
mm,
I would say, but California last year was a little bit different because it was so foggy. I just remember the first day I got there, the ball was going like 20 yards shorter, and it was crazy. It was hard to adjust, but I think you get 2 rounds. I feel like I can adjust in two rounds, two practice rounds. So um, yeah, so it definitely was a little bit different at first, but as far as going to Philadelphia, the ball still flew the same.
mm. And in all these events, right, the pairings aren't necessarily like if you're playing the Tennessee Stadium, you probably know a lot of the guys at this point, right? You're going to some of these USGA events, you're not really sure who you're going to get paired with. And as a mid am, I played Ohio Am last year, played every single day with college guys, right?
Right.
Very different vibe than I remember playing as a college golfer, where it's like everybody's hyper focused on this is the only thing ever, right? Now,
Yeah.
like we were talking about beforehand, you're working in logistics, right? Like we still got to clock in on Monday, kind of a kind of a deal. Have you noticed that almost an advantage, or do you feel like it maybe removes you from the conversation when you're walking down the fairways?
I think it can be either, right? It depends on how you want to look at it. I would say for me, I get less into all the outside stuff that probably doesn't matter. And then at the end of the day, once the first tee ball's over and once we're walking down the fairway, it's just another round.
Yeah.
Yeah, it means more. You want to play well more than you ever do at any other tournament. But at the end of the day, it's like you're just out there and you're trying to shoot the best you can. That's how I look at it. I try very hard to stay away from anything else that doesn't matter, and just try to focus on everything that I can do better to possibly shoot the best score I can.
And how do you handle that when there's a specific number on the line? So I'll use your 2025 Tennessee State Am win as an example. You were down five, or we're down, sorry, with 5 holes left, and you birdied four of your last five. You kind of, I'm assuming, had an idea of where you were and what needed to happen. it's nice to think like I just got to go out there and give myself as many chances as possible and see where the dice fall. But there's also sometimes where it's like, man, I gotta buckle down. I just gotta do this. Like this is what
Correct,
has to get done.
for
How do
sure.
you handle those moments? What are you telling yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's situational. Obviously, um, I think in that particular moment, I knew, I had to do something really good in the last 5 holes. I knew exactly where I stood. I was playing with the 2 guys that I was basically competing against as far as, finishing first, and so I knew exactly what I needed to do for to a certain extent. I knew that, um, the other guys were playing well, and I had to make something happen. So, it was one of those things that, yeah, I can't just make pars and expect this to work out in my favor. So yeah, I mean, you kind of buckle down a little bit more. I don't know that it's necessarily taking on more risk. Sometimes maybe it is. I didn't necessarily have to do that on the holes that were left. It's always a fine line, man, between like wanting to know what you need to do and where you stand versus like, hey, I'm just trying to shoot the best I can, right? So,
Mm,
I think with with the number on the line and at a U.S. amateur, sometimes it's tough. You don't know exactly what that number is going to be. Um, it's nice to kind of have an idea, and I think in your head internally, you always kind of know a little bit, even without looking. Just being out there playing and kind of having an idea after the first round scores or whatever. So I think you're always kind of competing against that number in your head. And I mean, for me, I tried as much as possible to just focus on hitting, you know, like once again, this is cliche, but one shot at a time, the best I can,
mhm.
and executing that. And at the end of the day, that's all I can do. I know I might need to birdie the last 4 holes, but I can't birdie them all at this exact second. So all I can do is focus intently on each shot and do the best I can there.
Yeah. That's I think that, maybe it's not to win a Tennessee State Am, but a lot of amateurs maybe struggle with that the first time they're under par or, they just played their best 9 ever and they wanna follow it up really well or they're maybe playing a match with their buddy who they never beat. Um, and I know that you're not immune to fighting off kind of those weird thoughts. Like this year, you
Right.
you said in an interview you struggled fighting off the thoughts of 3 in a row, winning 3 Tennessee State Ams in a row. How do you fight off those thoughts, or do you just accept that they're there and just try to move forward? How do you deal with trying to get ahead of yourself?
I think you have to accept that they're there and that's normal, right? I don't think that you can make them just disappear, but I think you can choose to focus on, am I going to let this overtake me, or am I going to choose to focus on the fact that, hey, like I have this opportunity, this does not happen unless I focus on what I'm trying to accomplish today. So
Mm,
sometimes for me, it's almost making up a story or changing the narrative somewhat. So, instead of thinking about, oh, like, this could mean this or that, it's like, hey, can we go shoot 65 today? Um, you know, all of a sudden completely changed it. Instead of focused on the wrong things, now I'm focused on like, hey, like how good can we play today? Instead of, hey, what does this mean if I play good? Or like all the stuff you can easily get wrapped up in all the wrong stuff. And I think it's a challenge, but it's really cool when you feel like you can take some of those thoughts head on and embrace it and accept it. It's part of it, um, and kind of challenge it and look forward to seeing how good you can play versus like something you don't want to do. Right.
yeah, that's interesting. You played a lot of high stakes golf as a professional, right? With it being your career. How do you feel like that shaped you as not only maybe a golfer, but also as a person to be out there with, what was a game for all of us growing up, right? Like something that we loved and now you're financially dependent on it. How do you feel like that shaped you? What were some of the positive lessons that came out of that?
I would say you realize how hard golf is,
Mhm.
and you appreciate how difficult it is to make it professionally. first off, but I would say I think it shapes you in a way that you learn how to deal with failure.
Mm,
Because at the end of the day, like, you're failing a lot, and I think you just kind of have to learn to be okay with it, right? Doesn't mean that you give up, but you fail and you keep coming back. So I would say that's probably the most important thing that I learned from that.
mm. And, you're obviously playing amateur now, won Tennessee State Am 3 times in a row. So, when did you kinda know pro golf was over for you? Was there a certain day, or was it a kind of a drawn out decision?
I would say it was drawn out, and then it was kind of just didn't really love it, didn't really
Mm,
enjoy it. It wasn't necessarily one particular thing. It's drawn out over time, and just kind of got to the point where hey, just don't really want to do this. I think I kind of realized that at that particular moment, I was not in a good enough headspace to continue playing.
mm,
So I think for me, it was like, hey, I need to step aside. I mean, I'm not spending any more money and time on this. I think it's time to look for something else, right? So I think it was a tough realization, but at the same time, was the right one
mm.
at the time for sure.
Well, I appreciate the honesty and the transparency there. We talked to, Brett referred you, and obviously he was very open about kind of the struggles of playing high level golf and all the pressure there, and clearly both of you have figured out how to overcome it, and I think obviously a lot of that is you guys being willing to be honest with yourselves as well. Like, that's not something that everybody can do, right? Was there anything in that process, anybody you leaned on that helped you make that transition away from pro golf being everything, right? Like golf being your career to okay, now I'm focusing a lot of my time so elsewhere.
I did have, I would say, yeah, family, and I had some close friends, some mentors who I'd traveled and played with professionally. Um, I think it was kind of honest conversations with them, and um, I some would encourage you to try and keep going maybe another year, or I think it ultimately though the main advice I got was, if it's not what you want to do, then um, hey, just don't continue going down that path, right? I think it's so easy to get negative in golf, and especially when it's like you said, high stakes. You're playing for a living at this point, so um, and it costs a lot of money just to try. So I think for me, I had a very great group of friends and family
Mhm.
that helped me make that decision, and I knew it was the right one at the time, and um, yeah, it's always funny to look back and see how everything manufactures it way full, at full circle, and yeah, and here we are today.
If one of your past players came to you, or if this could have even happened, one of your players comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm thinking about turning pro. What do you think?" What does that conversation look like? What questions do you want them to answer before they make a decision one way or another?
I've always said I would never discourage anybody, even if
Mm,
I didn't think, even if I didn't think they could make it. It's not
mm,
because it's not my opinion that matters, right? I think the only thing I would tell them is to make sure that they have, a good financial backing, and that they understand how much it's going to cost, and they understand the time commitment, and that they also understand how mentally difficult it can be. It's not necessarily at first, but um, more than likely, you're going to struggle, right? So, at least at some point, whether it's starting out or whether it's 3 years down the road, you're going to struggle, and you're going to have a point where you're looking in the mirror and you're like, "Is this really what I want to do?" So, I try to make them aware of how difficult that is. Just not from just my point of view, just from the people that I knew that did it a lot longer than I did. Um, yeah, I try to get them as well informed as possible, but I always encourage it, right? I mean, I think you play golf for so long, why not try it, right? I mean, I think it's always the the saying that, like I've played college golf, like might as well try it. Go to Q school, something like absolutely. Um, you get hot and you get playing well, uh, good things can happen. I've seen it. So,
Yeah.
but I think they also need to know the brutal reality of it too, and how difficult that it can be.
Yeah, it's, something Hayden, who, actually we recorded last week's episode last night. He's playing professional golf, and he just brings such a unique perspective to the conversation because golf is, it's a lot, obviously, it's a job for him, but it's a lot different than how I approach it now. So it's fun to kinda
Yeah,
bounce ideas off of each other, and, yeah, it's so fascinating. Well, all that leading into, we're 40 minutes into this, so there's probably 33% of people are still around. So we can talk about reinstatement now. Once again, like I told you before here beforehand, our statement is not that it's personal. We don't want to call people out. Nobody's who got reinstated or didn't get reinstated is in the wrong. Like it's uh, also nobody's ever not gotten reinstated who applied. At least USGA has not said so. So, um, but this isn't personal towards anybody. So once again, I
right,
want to make that very clear before every single conversation around this.
right.
What was your process like? Like, what was the reinstatement process like for you? Was it different than what you expected?
I would say yes, it was different than I expected. However, mine was maybe a little more unique than maybe some of the others that I have talked to or know about. So I think mine. I waited almost 4 years to even apply. Like didn't play golf for almost 4 years competitively, at least. And I had a buddy that was like, "Hey, like, why don't you just get your amateur status back?" I guess in my mind, I thought that I was maybe going to play, and if I played, maybe it would be a professional event, and you get to working, and 3 years go by, and all of a sudden it's like, well, I haven't done that, so what's the point? So I think mine was maybe a little unique in the fact that I applied later, so it does not matter. And this was something I wasn't aware of. It does not matter, um, you know, necessarily when you apply. What matters is how your waiting time. So for me, I had not played an event in 4 years. I had not accepted any sort of money in 4 years. So I basically had served my waiting time in that 4 years. So I got my status back almost immediately, and I was kind of like blown away because I didn't really know everybody just says, oh, it takes like 2 years. And so I applied and was thinking that it probably would. And then I guess somebody had made it apparent to me that, you know, maybe that's not the case. Like you should check. And I mean, I got it back almost immediately, probably within 6 months, I would say for sure, maybe
Mm.
less. And so basically, like all the whole process had already served itself just because I applied so much later.
And then what was the highest level? Did you hold status on a PGA Tour Latinoamerica? Did you? What?
Latino American.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just for context for people in terms of how long the waiting period was, and what year were you reinstated?
2020, I believe.
Okay.
2016 or 2017 was the last event that I played.
Yeah. So I think
Um,
that gives you a context for kind of what expectations are because you hear somebody gets reinstated and you don't necessarily know how long they waited or how long they didn't play for.
right.
Um, I think that whole process is interesting. Give me a little insight into like what the communication is like back and forth to USGA. Like, are you filling out a Google form? What's the process look like?
That's a good question. It's been 6 years now. I'm trying to remember. I just remember it was a lot of pages online,
Mm,
and it took probably longer than I expected. And yeah, I mean, because it was asking all sorts of questions, right? So I mean, it does document a lot of things. Um, However, mine was pretty simple because I didn't play good enough or make enough money professionally for it to really matter, I would say. So mine was probably easier than most. I can imagine if playing on Corn Ferry Tour or maybe even a year or two on PGA, that it gets a little more complex. And
Are you comfortable sharing the amount that you made professionally or a roundabout number?
um, I would say all in all, $3,000,
Okay.
$4,000.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. Um, yeah, like I said, not enough to matter or make any
Yeah.
significance. So I think that obviously plays into effect. But yeah, it's I can imagine for the guys that held Corn Ferry status for 3 to 8 years that that's a lot different and it's going to be more obviously timely to get their status back.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the transparency there. That's, as I kinda told you, and we'll tease, is we're working on a kind of a big mid-am episode, and all about reinstatement, and there's a what's funny, I mean, everybody's got their opinions on Twitter. I also saw, man, there was a really good thread yesterday about, not good in terms of entertainment. It was like, "What's the difference between, like, Stu Hagestad and some guy who got reinstated?" Like, he basically plays a pro schedule. It's like, the fact that he didn't turn pro is the like, like, I
Yeah,
don't know what to tell
I
you, man, like, that's just how the 2
he never
statuses work. It's
never
like,
turned.
once
Yeah,
again, it's another good, like, if my aunt had wheels, she'd be a bike. Like, okay, well, cool, man. Like, I don't know what to tell, like, we we can make up whatever we want, whenever we want,
for sure.
to make whatever argument we want. Goodness gracious. Okay, well, let's get back to some practical stuff before we get out of here. Um, what's one thing that recreational golfers believe about getting better that just is not true?
Mm, there's a lot of them. I would
Give 'em
say,
all to me, man.
I
Let's let's dive.
mean, we've kind of alluded to this a little bit, but I would say spending a ton of time on the range trying to perfect your technique and thinking that hitting a bunch of golf balls and being a robot is going to make you better. I would say spending more time um, creating feel and being creative would be a better alternative, and spending more time on the golf course. Um, YouTube videos, not necessarily YouTube golf. I just mean as far as like YouTube instructional videos. You can go down a rabbit hole there. I think we've all kind of done that. Um, I think there's not a perfect golf swing, right? I think you're always just trying to get more out of your golf swing. Um, and I think one of the biggest keys is just learning how to make that work, right? And have an instructor that can tell you how that looks for you in particular, because everybody's body type's different. Everybody's limited on what they can do. I think being able to really hone in on that versus like, hey, well, this is what this guy's doing on PGA Tour. Well, this guy's body can move differently than yours. So I think being able to have the understanding of that and know what your physical capabilities and limitations are
Mm.
to be able to get the most out of that.
Gosh, that's some good stuff. Link down below. I'm sure I threw some like mid-roll ads in here about this, but I've been putting together like a big cheat sheet of like what we learn with every single mid-am interview. And yours is about to be really long after that section. That's great. That's some good stuff. So, well, what's circled next on the calendar for you from an event perspective?
uh, I've got like three member guests coming up in September. So yeah, unfortunately, I got after the USAM and coming up just shy of match play, like you're distraught and you want to keep playing and you want to have another opportunity, but unfortunately, I don't really have like a big mid-am event or amateur event
Mm,
coming up. It's mostly member guest, and yeah. So I think maybe the Tennessee mid-am. I'm not signed up. I'm not sure if I'm going to play. I wasn't planning on it, but the U.S. mid-am, I never could play because of coaching. I could
mm,
technically play now, but I didn't sign up due to the timing of everything and didn't know how it would work with the new job. But
yeah.
so right now, not a whole lot. Yeah, I don't know. We might add something in the upcoming 2 months, I would say, but we'll see.
Well, I'll shout out, um gosh, I'm blanking on names now. That's awful. Cody and John. Uh, they Cody is a part owner and founder of Broom's Edge. So they've got the Carolinas
Oh
Invitational at the
yeah.
end of October. So
Hmm.
if you and Brett can get out there, I know that place is sick. So
I've heard
um,
great things. Yes.
that's I'm trying. I need a vacation, so I'm trying to figure out how I can weasel my way into that and parlay that into a little vacation. Hayden lives down
Absolutely.
there. Go see Hayden and Anna, and yeah, I need a breather. It's a my sister got married this summer. My wife's sister got married this summer. It was a summer. It was awesome. Don't get me wrong, but it was a summer of just like trips, not vacation. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha. Yeah, I
So,
understand.
um, yeah. Well, hey,
Well,
Dad, thanks for listening. You want to plug anything, Payne? How can people find you? How can people support you?
uh, I don't know. That's a great question.
I'll link your
Instagram.
Instagram down below. Yep.
Yeah. Painter.
We'll get that Instagram content popping. The good bucket
Yeah,
hat pictures over there.
that is true. I do. I love the bucket hat. I can't go
That's
without it in
good.
the summertime.
Well, sweet dude. Thanks again for popping on, and
Absolutely.
we will
Thank
see
you.
you guys next week. Go follow Payne.